You're listening to Sports Entertainment Awareness, bringing you the best in professional wrestling coverage of WWE Raw, WWE Smackdown, WWE NXT, AEW, and backstage wrestling news.
Our mission is to bring pro wrestling further into the mainstream with weekly coverage, history, wrestling news, and opinions on the sport of professional wrestling.
I'm Josh.
I'm Jonah.
And welcome to Sports Entertainment Awareness. On this episode, we're going to go through the Triple H Netflix deal, the Wyatt Sick6, Shane McMahon in AEW, Rhea Ripley's return to wrestling without actually wrestling, and Sika Anoa'i. Am I saying that right?
Anoa'i.
Sika Anoa'i. Dead.
Alright, so, Triple H Netflix deal. Now, you and I have been talking about this in private, where I believe that cable, it's not as dying as much as it is, but you're starting to see Netflix get more invested into the sports realm of things. They've had the roast of Tom Brady. They've just had a bunch of signings to NFL deals. And I think you're going to start seeing them invest more and more heavily into the sports side of things.
That really lends to how much people like live. And we're seeing with social media, Instagram, TikTok, Netflix, you don't have to be live on cable anymore.
I think cable will still be around. Again, at the end of the day, these leagues / WWE sign billion-dollar contracts. The NFL has like $1 billion deal with ESPN, even more than that. But I think what you're going to see more so with WWE, to bring it back to them, is you're going to see them have their entire video library on it, and that's going to open up so many doors for new viewers. Someone like my dad, for example, who I've jokingly have brainwashed him into thinking, oh, you're going to become a massive wrestling fan like me.
So does that mean SmackDown, pay-per-views, NXT, that's all going to be on Netflix?
I think they said PLEs. I know they also recently signed a deal for NXT on CW, and I think they also signed something different with SmackDown. So basically what it is that they have one program on basic cable, one program on paid for cable, and then one program on streaming.
So they're capturing all the markets. And depending on what you're on, you can maybe get everything. And then there's the people that pirate it anyway.
People like me.
Yeah,
but basically that Netflix deal I think is going to be massive. I think you're going to see more leagues and sports in general jumping ship to Netflix, Crave, whatever the case may be. And you know what? Nick Khan is the best hire that WWE has probably ever made historically.
They're going to be unscripted too.
Well, that's the other beauty of it. You can have them drop F-bombs now, and they're not going to be censored. Like, you know, the chance where it's like F you, solo, clap, clap, clap. Those are now going to be uncensored because Netflix doesn't really care about stuff like that.
When they had Drew McIntyre come out on TV and yell, "This is BS," it sounded like BS.
Unfortunately, they have to bend the knee to Fox, Disney, whoever owns the cable networks, right? And they still have to follow the government regulations. Meanwhile, Netflix has live sex scenes on their shows, so I don't think they really care about a wrestler dropping the F-bomb here and there. I'm not saying you're going to all of a sudden start hearing them swearing like they're truckers, but you'll start seeing them get a lot more relaxed in their content.
When we saw Superkicked in Toronto, they came out at the beginning of the show and they said, swear as much as you want, drink as much as you want. You're never going to see that.
No. They still want to keep the like kid-friendly audience because those are the ones that get mom and dad to the shows.
The whole point of having the kids is, you come, you take your 2 kids, and they can't pay for a ticket to go by themselves, so you got to buy 3 tickets, one for you and the one for junior and juniorette, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Right? And then you got to buy a John Cena t-shirt, you got to buy the waistbands, you got to buy the action figure, you got to buy this, you got to buy that. So they know it's a bit of a racket. Next thing you know, you're buying a $9 beer and a hot dog.
Well, this is the other thing too. They want to turn their PLEs, more specifically than the weekly shows, into kind of what UFC is. And that's, it's an event. It's a big deal. You bring the wife, you get all dressed up, you buy a couple drinks, you see some big sweaty men touch each other. It's a fun time. It's a good time.
You're going to think I'm making this up.
But
one of my grandfather's first dates that he took my grandmother on was to a professional wrestling show. Keep in mind, this is the 50s. Yes. Keep in mind, this is the 50s. So you went to pro wrestling and you went in a suit because, like, at one time it was respected and it was a big show.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate that they're trying to do that because it went from wrestling to boxing and boxing to other sports, and now you see people in sweaters and t-shirts and jeans at wrestling events.
Okay, but I have a very important question. Did your grandfather end up marrying her?
Yes.
Okay. So then at least, it's justified. Imagine that's the first date. I know a lot of people, you probably wouldn't get a second one.
She just understood there was just something different about this guy.
There's something really is different about him.
To conclude this, because we're going to move on to the next one, wrestling has always been around. We just talked about it being in the 50s, wearing suits. It started as a traveling carnival show, and I forget who just said it. It was on the Who Killed WCW thing that wrestling is indestructible. It might have been Eric Bischoff. Wrestling as a concept, as a profession, as entertainment, is by nature indestructible, but it continues to evolve. Evolution, it's a mystery.
I mean, it's also kind of like music. Did music just die out and we stopped caring about it, or did it just go from compact CDs to streaming services?
Oh yeah, it evolved with the format and the times, and I think that having intelligent people that can push it forward,
capitalistic companies like Apple,
and keep doing new things with it, that's how it continues to evolve, right? It reflects the culture, it reflects the technology. Wrestling is indestructible. So pretty much since Bray died, we've been wondering what's going to happen to Bo Dallas, or Taylor Wyndham. Are we still calling him Bo Dallas?
I don't know, honestly. I think they've called him not Mike Rotunda. What's his real name?
Taylor?
I think they've called him Taylor on TV. I could be wrong. I'm going to go with Bo for now.
But after what feels like months and months and months and months, we finally get to see what they're going to do. I remember when they were bringing Uncle Howdy onto TV and just showing him up in the rafters. And then fucking Bray died and they just cut all of it.
I want to say one thing about Bray real quick. I think probably in about 10-ish years, a little more, a little less, you are going to see people create their own sort of universes that they can live in, and they're going to directly take inspiration from Bray.
Oh yeah,
because he kind of did exist in a universe within a universe in a way.
He created a new genre of wrestling. Those recorded matches, some of the dark stuff, like he was obviously borrowing from Undertaker and Kane and Mankind, but he was doing something unique, and it was almost like a comic book series that has its own little universe.
I think the Firefly Funhouse is not only a career highlight for both him and Cena, I think it's one of the most creatively well done things probably in the last 10 years of wrestling. And the way that WWE allowed basically a character assassination of John Cena, top guy John Cena. We didn't embrace Roman the way we did at this point. Cody wasn't around at this point. The fact that WWE allowed that level of a character assassination was both shocking and amazing.
And they went deep.
And I'm a Cena lover.
I still remember him in the NWO shirt and just getting a little giggle out of that. Back to what we were talking about, we finally got to see what's going to happen next to the Wyatt family, the Wyatt Sick6. I saw Dexter Lumis, Eric Rowan, we saw Nikki Cross. Who's the other guy?
Joey Gacy.
Joe Gacy?
Yeah.
With the pig mask. It's interesting. I'm not sure how excited I am for it. I want to see how it plays out. I'm always a little apprehensive of horror wrestling.
First of all, I want to know how Chad Gable in 1 week both died and came back to life.
Chad Gable is Jesus.
Clearly.
He went into a rock, he came out 3 days later, couldn't make his friends back, but he seems to be making new friends.
Clearly, Chad Gable is unkillable. I liked it. Probably one of the best debuts I can remember in a very, very long time. I'm a little bit easier going with the horror stuff because I do think when it's well done, it is a phenomenal gimmick and makes wrestling very, very interesting. I'm of the belief that every roster needs at least one or two of those supernatural characters, but I think it could be good. I think it could be well done. I like the recent vignette they had of Nikki Cross giving the tape to Michael Cole and it's Uncle Howdy talking to Bo Dallas and they're talking about Bray's death. So now you have like this cool dual conflict in Bo Dallas's mind where it's like it's two split personalities.
That delivery was excellent.
I think it's the best promo of his career by a mile.
Not even the promo, just Chad Gable in the ring. Smoke fills up again. Here comes Nikki Cross. She crawls through the ring. Gable fucks off. She hands Michael Cole a box. And you know that old adage, anything that comes out of a box gets over?
What's in the box?
What's in the box? But Cole gets it and it's a tape. It's a VCR. Some of you have never seen one of these before.
Well, okay, hang on. In all fairness to Cole, some people have not seen a VHS tape. I grew up with like a collection of Disney movies that were all in a VHS box.
Oh yeah, there's probably a stack of them downstairs still, and there was a stack that lived at my grandmother's, but they could have given him a disc. They could have given him a USB. She could have literally walked up and airdropped it to him.
It's not as scary.
VCRs and VHSs are scary now.
Nikki Cross is like the girl from The Ring, right? And the whole thing was she gave VHS tapes, and then 7 days later you died.
They're gonna kill Michael Cole.
No, they're gonna kill Chad Gable again, but then he might come back to life again.
How many times can they kill Chad Gable? He's like a cat. He's gonna run out of lives.
Chad Gable's indestructible. He should have been Sami Zayn.
In all seriousness, you saw Bray Wyatt's documentary.
Great documentary.
And they talked about his relationship with Triple H and when he'd come to them with these stories, and the question was, great, where does it go?
And that's kind of just circling back to the Firefly Funhouse thing. They couldn't do that in a live setting. The benefit they had at the time was COVID. And so because of that, it's a lot easier to get away with pre-recorded stuff. And as great as Bray Wyatt was, I can also understand the frustration of like, how do we do this in a live setting though?
What WrestleMania was Orton and Bray where they had the bugs in the ring?
I think that was the first Mania they had post-COVID, because that's when Alexa Bliss was with him, right?
Right. It's all a blur at this point, but when it's done well, it's done well.
When it's not, it's cringe.
Oh, 100%. You know what? With wrestling, you ask your audience to suspend their disbelief. I know that Mark Calloway and Glenn Jacobs are not really brothers.
Well, what?
Our friends last night were still learning that Edge and Christian, despite us telling them in the past, are not actually brothers.
What?
Bubba Ray Dudley and Devon, they're 100% brothers.
Well, again.
But how far can you expect us to extend the disbelief? You know what I mean?
That's the thing with wrestling. There's a level of ridiculousness you need to accept with it, and you need to suspend your disbelief. Steve Rogers is not actually Captain America. Robert Downey Jr. is not actually Iron Man. But at the same time, you can't all of a sudden have Robert Downey Jr. become superhuman, who can read minds and does things that is not canonically related to Iron Man.
Wasn't Steve Rogers the news reporter on the Trailer Park Boys?
No.
I'm Steve Rogers, and you're watching Kitty Time Loveland. Is that what it was called? When Bubbles had the cats?
Cheeseburger Picnic.
That's the episode. But how much can you expect your audience to put up with? I mean, we've seen some stuff go really well, and we've seen some stuff go really wrong. I mean, you have an undead wizard that for 30 years terrorized the WWE. It was like a massive accomplishment to face him, but we also saw an 80-year-old woman give birth to a hand.
Undertaker's gimmick is really stupid when you think about it. You know what? I think it's this. Vince doesn't like to be told he's wrong. And so he built this own little universe in a place where he can exist and always be right. Because what are you going to do? You can't go over Vince. He was the creative, owner, CEO, everything.
But again, how much can you expect your audience to suspend their disbelief? One of the problems with wrestling, and it's not really a problem, is because it's got winners and losers, it's got titles, it's got contention, it presents itself like another sport, like football, basketball. There's more drama to it, right? But because it presents itself like something that's presenting itself as legitimate, I don't want to say that wrestling's not legitimate, but like there's no one in the back saying, you're going to win the title at Mania, right? Mm-hmm. It's got that force of comparison to it.
Hang on, I'm going to pull this up because Triple H recently said something that I really liked about what I believe wrestling is.
Are you talking about the movie about wrestling thing?
No, this is what Triple H said on WWE, but it also applies to wrestling. we're not a sport. We're a movie about a sport or a TV show about a sport. I lean closer a little bit TV, but that's what it is. I like how they've taken inspiration from sports. I like the direction they're going. I like how they're treating their wrestlers as not just wrestlers, but also athletes. But ultimately, when it comes to these silly I don't want to say silly, that's a little bit unfair. Supernatural characters like Bray Wyatt, like Bo Dallas, or anyone, The Undertaker, you can only ask us to suspend our disbelief so much before it does become kind of cringy.
Yes!
I'm excited for it, though. I think it's good. I think it was a strong debut. I like the split personality thing, because now you can allow Bo Dallas to wrestle as himself, and if you want to do the Fiend thing where it's like every now and then he wrestles in the mask, that's perfectly fine.
Now I'm going to leave you with a question, and then we can cut this one off. Who's the creative mind behind this? Because Bray was always that guy. Now with no Bray, is it Triple H? Is it Bo Dallas?
It's probably Triple H, because I do think Bray seemed like the type of person where wildly creative, but you also kind of needed to keep him on a little bit of a leash. I think if they had more time with him, Bray would have thrived under Triple H. I think he would have been phenomenal.
Bray would have been excellent with Triple H, especially just letting Bray do what he wanted, but giving him a filter and a little bit of editing. That would have been perfect.
Exactly.
So there's been some rumors, some rumblings out there about Shane McMahon joining AEW. Let's break it down. From what it sounds like, he was talking to somebody that worked there. And that could be in talent acquisitions, that could be Tony Khan, and that could be just a wrestler he used to work with. About potentially being there. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to go to AEW or be an on-screen talent. Personally, I hope he doesn't. What do you think?
Two things. One, I can understand why he wants to be an on-screen talent, because think about it. The last time we saw him was him tearing his quads when he tried to leapfrog over The Miz, and then all of a sudden a match between Snoop Dogg and The Miz happened with Snoop Dogg dropping a people's elbow, which is one of the wildest Mania moments when you really think about it.
Torn quads run in that family. It's in the genes.
Unfortunately. So, like, I can understand that's, like, the last way we're seeing you. That's kind of a crappy way to go out. But why, like, honestly, why AEW's roster costs them $104 million a year as it is? They don't need to put that money in Shane McMahon, who probably unfairly, but comes with a bit of baggage because of who he's related to, is not going to be a prominent star. I don't see how he could benefit from anything backstage. I just think this is a waste of money. I think it's a waste of resources, and for a roster that's already costing well over $100 million a year, it's not really something the AEW needs.
Aside from putting on some great matches 25 years ago and being an on-screen talent for a bit, I don't know what he did backstage or what he had a hand in.
Well, he had a lot of creative say. It's how he won that Best Wrestler in the World tournament. Shane McMahon, Best Wrestler in the World in 2018.
But what did he do backstage? Did he coach people? Did he handle money? Was he an accountant for them?
To my personal knowledge, he didn't do anything. Again, he just had a lot of creative say. He had a massive ego. It's simple as that. He was scheduled to help make one of the Rumbles. I forget which one, but he was supposed to make one of the Rumbles, and it was so poorly received, Vince fired him. And his original plan was Shane McMahon wins the Rumble. And again, this is at a time in like 2020 where you had Drew McIntyre, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins. Pick any of the names that I just said. They would all be better Royal Rumble winners than Shane McMahon.
Was that the one where he got knocked out with the Superman punch for real?
I hope so.
Or he collided with Ricochet. I don't remember what, but like there was a big botch in that match.
I think so. But again, though, Shane was in charge of the Royal Rumble. Arguably the most creatively important pay-per-view of the year. The most creatively important match of the year. Because that's what sets us on the road to WrestleMania. That's what tells us what the big match is. You can't screw it up in a match that already has enough screw-ups as it is just because you have 30 people coming in and out of the ring. And he completely botched it.
Or under the ring if you're Titus O'Neil.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you know what? That's an all-time great moment. We'll let it pass.
But you have a 50-year-old man that's not a professional wrestler long term. Yes, he's been around it. Yes, he's wrestled. Yes, he's put on some great matches, but that's 20 plus years ago. Why does he see the need to fit himself in above people that have worked for it, put in the time, dedication, and don't have the last name?
Again, it stems back to, I think, how he went out. Again, the last way he went out was him leapfrogging over The Miz, ending up tearing both quads, and then a terrible match between Snoop Dogg and The Miz breaks out because of it. And again, credit to Miz and Snoop Dogg in all fairness. They were thrown right into the fire and they made the best they could of it. But why was Shane McMahon in the ring at WrestleMania 39?
I think they need to treat Shane McMahon the way they treated that angle. Was it WrestleMania 33 or 34 where he fought Undertaker in the Hell in the Cell?
Another match that didn't need to happen.
That's what I'm saying. But he came out with Vince and he said that he had a box. And in that box was something that Vince didn't want to get out.
Well, it ended up getting out.
Maybe the Janelle Grant sex tape, whatever the hell. But it was never brought up again.
Yeah, creative sucked at that point, though. Like, I watched enough wrestling in 2010s to sit through so much crap that I was fed through the screen. 2019, 2018, 2017, that the late 2010s was the worst wrestling I've ever seen. And by every business measure, it showed it. From the down ticket sales, to the down merchandise sales, to the down stock price, to the down audience ratings. By every business measure, it sucked. And for reasons like that, that's why it sucked.
I saw, it was a picture from 2018 or 2019 of Battlegrounds. And that's a B pay-per-view at best. Is that what, November, October-ish?
There's like 10,000 people there, and that's being very generous.
Oh yeah, the crowd looked light, and then you see a random episode of Raw in the middle of the year. Full.
Because this is the thing. Your audience will let you know how they feel about your product with their wallets.
Yeah.
And so this is part of the reason why even if Vince shakes the whole Janelle Grant thing, he's never coming back. Okay, so you want to come back to a company despite the fact that since we've gotten a new head of creative, tickets are at an all-time high, critical reception is at an all-time high, viewership is at an all-time high, we've just signed a $500 million deal with Netflix, and every single business measure says we're doing well, and you want to come back. God damn it, yes I do.
And nobody, not a single fucking person, is taking a shit on their secretary in the office.
Okay.
We're getting off track and we're not going anywhere productive. Let's close this one off.
Shane is not going to AEW.
Shane, you're not going to hear this. I don't know who's going to hear this, but stay the fuck away from AEW.
They already have enough problems as it is.
It's a sinking ship.
Okay, let's not sink it.
As long as there's football money, it'll be around, I think. But the ratings are definitely sinking.
They had one bad week that looks more like an anomaly than anything else.
Apparently they rely very heavily on Big Bang Theory. I just want to preface this one as this is also a rumor. This has not been verified. But I think it's coming. Supposedly Rhea Ripley is going to be able to return. Not in a wrestling capacity and an on-screen role until she's healed. But there's lots for her to do if she comes back. What do you think?
Well, Forbes listed her as the third biggest draw in the company, behind only Roman and Cody in that order. So they need them. You always want your star player there. I don't expect Rhea to be cleared for in-ring action anytime soon. But one, I think that Liv Morgan and Rhea match is going to be as big, if not better, than the Drew and Punk match, honestly, with the way they've been building it. Number two, as far as it goes right now, I like her on screen. I think the Judgment Day has had a good run. I think you can go at the angle of Damian, I left you in charge, and now everything's just gone to the crapper. Finn Balor is busy hooking up with Liv Morgan. Dom is cheating on me, and we still have JD McDonough here who just exists and is useless.
He's got a big fucking head.
You know what? JD McDonough's a good seller.
He's got a big head. It looks like a Funko Pop.
I think it's time for Rhea to return. I think if she's able to return, of course, more so than anything. But she needs to be there. I think it's kind of the next natural progression of the story. What are they going to do? Have Dominic and Liv make out? I guess you could do that, but yeah.
She has a great on-screen presence, Rhea. You've noticed with her gone since WrestleMania that Raw is different. Like, her dynamics within the bloodline against other female wrestlers, like, her absence is felt. Some people, when they go away with an injury, they're gone and you just don't even notice them. It's like they were never even here.
You know what it is, and this is kind of a testament to how great Rhea is. On the men's side, they have a bunch of top guys. They have a Cody Rhodes, a Roman Reigns, a Seth Rollins, a Drew McIntyre, a CM Punk. With the women's side, I think they're going through a transition period right now. It's like, okay, Becky's gone, Charlotte is out with injury, but again, she's also getting up there with age and injuries. Bayley's still around, sure, but they've clearly never seen her as a top female. So I think they're going through a little bit of a transition period, and Rhea's the only legitimately proven female wrestler that they have, like a Cody, like a Roman, like a Seth.
They're trying out different women, though. Like, they're giving Liv Morgan a shot. Nikki Cross has clearly got her own thing in the horror genre.
The thing with the horror thing, though, is that it's hard to achieve mainstream success with it. Like, even Taker, part of the reason I do think he kept off screen so much was his own personal choice, but also because you're an undead space wizard.
If you look at Raw versus SmackDown, SmackDown's got Jade Cargill. SmackDown's got Bayley. They've got that cast of characters. Naomi, if you want to include her. Liv Morgan feels like the most prominent female now that Rhea's off TV.
I was going to say, I think you have your two core pillars with them. I think Liv Morgan is a proper heel. And I think Rhea Ripley is just too cool to get over as a heel, so you can make her like an anti-hero babyface.
But who else comes out of the woodwork to become part of that mix?
I think Tiffany Stratton's good. I think she's just young.
She's on SmackDown, though, and I think that SmackDown's the right place for her right now.
I'm trying to think who else is on Raw. They clearly have investment in Maxine Dupree, but I just don't think she's there within the Raw roster in terms of wrestling ability. I can't think of another female off the top of my head that would be good.
Okay, I've got the current roster right here. Let's look at the women.
Probably Io Sky they'd do something with.
Abby the Witch, not sure who that is unless that's Nikki Cross's new name.
Nikki Cross.
Alba Fire, who's doing well in the tag team division. Asuka, Dakota Kai doing well in tag team. Isla Dawn, Io Sky, Ivy Nile.
Ivy Nile's going to be doing something, though, with the Creed brothers and Chad Gable. So you might be right. You might be onto something. But I think we're still a little bit of a ways away.
Katana Chance, I remember when she was Katie Catazarno. Am I saying that right?
I believe so.
I was always impressed with her. She's tiny, right? I don't know if she has the personality to be a singles performer. Like, I don't see Caden Carter, Lyra Valkyrie really doing much.
They're building Lyra Valkyrie, but again, hasn't even been on the main roster for a full year.
Zelina Vega, you're starting to see be a pillar. Scarlett. Sonya Deville, you're not seeing so much of. Your girlfriend Shayna Baszler. Zoe Stark. But this roster feels light for women.
You know what? The SmackDown female roster is probably better. Because, again, you think about that. You have Tiffany Stratton. You have Bianca Belair, you have Jade Cargill, you have Bayley, you have Naomi. I do think probably the female roster on SmackDown is better than the female roster on Raw.
Chelsea Green, Indy Hartwell, Jade Cargill. I don't know. Mi Chin you see sometimes. Nia Jax, Tegan Knox.
Piper Niven.
You know what they should do?
What?
Put Chelsea Green on her own on Raw.
I love Chelsea Green. I think she's a star waiting to burst. I think it should be her or Tiffany Stratton that wins Money in the Bank.
But Chelsea Green, you put her on Raw. She's another pillar. She's seasoned. She's a good personality for that.
That pop she got in Chicago when she won, massive. Even by and that's just a SmackDown. So if she actually wins it at Money in the Bank, the roof is going to explode.
Oh.
She has the look. She has the ability. There's so much I like about her. You want to talk about a woman who maximizes her minutes every single time she's on screen. I am a Chelsea Green stan.
And that's how you get her to Raw. She says, you know what? I don't really care about defeating Bayley. I want to go after Liv Morgan.
And then you can have Rhea Ripley beat up Liv Morgan, and that's how you get the belt off Liv Morgan if you want to. If you want.
This started off as a conversation about Rhea Ripley, and this is exactly where this could go for Rhea. There's lots for her to do when she comes back.
But now you see why I say Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan could be just as big as Punk versus Drew.
Oh, you know what? While she's gone, they have Liv making hay while the fucking sun is shining. She's everywhere. She's stealing people's clothing. She's getting involved in matches and getting Dominic to push his dad, which is pretty easy to do apparently.
Liv Morgan's a top female. I know what I said earlier. I just think, again, the women's division is in a little bit more of a transitional period.
But she's on the revenge tour, and she's doing all the things she can to piss off Rhea Ripley and get revenge on her before she comes back.
And that match is going to be amazing when it happens.
So the wrestling world was saddened to hear about Sika Anoa'i. I said it right this time.
Yes, you did.
His death. He was 79 years old. He was most famously known for being one of the Wild Samoans with his brother Afa, and he's also the father of Roman Reigns.
I obviously have never seen a Wild Samoans match. I have never seen them live, but I do remember watching them, more specifically Sika, giving Roman and I forget the exact name and I apologize, but the thing Roman puts around his neck to acknowledge himself as the tribal chief. And it is probably one of the best moments in recent wrestling memory. And it's an important moment in the entire Bloodline story, which has single-handedly carried this company for 4 years.
Are you talking about that red thing that they were going to give to Paul Heyman last night and then Solo put it on himself?
So, one, and we can talk about this a little bit later, but that Roman Solo match is going to be great. But as far as Sika goes, let's give the man his due. The Wild Samoans was one of the first great tag teams. And in a time when the territories were still alive and well, I don't think they have historically gotten the respect they deserve. And I recently heard, and I forget who, and I apologize, but I recently heard someone say, you can't tell the history of WWE without also talking about the history of the Anoa'i family between the Wild Samoans, Roman, Rock, Rosie, Umaga, the Usos, Rikishi, Yokozuna. Naomi is technically related through marriage, and there's probably another 4 or 5 I haven't mentioned.
But not Samoa Joe.
Not Samoa Joe, no.
I'm just looking at their history here. Went through Stu Hart's Stampede Wrestling in the 70s. Spent some time in Vancouver, worked in Detroit, spent some time in Japan, did a long stint in WWF where they were tag team champions, Mid-South, back to WWF. They seem to do the tag team circuit, and they seem to be just made to wrestle together, and I think that is it their grandson? Let's see, how are they related to our good friends Jimmy Uso and Jey Uso?
That Samoan tree is so confusing.
Oh, it's monstrous.
Like, I can't keep track of it, and it's like, I just go off whatever WWE says if they're related or not. I know the Usos are the sons of Rikishi, same with Solo.
I'm trying to figure out who Rikishi's father is. Let's see, here's the family tree. We need this open. We need this open at all times. You have to be able to know your Samoan.
Okay, so I'm looking at this now. I see Umaga and Rikishi are related through Eleonora Anoa'i and Sipa Anoa'i.
Okay, so Ella Vera Anoa'i, Vera they called them, it looks like, and then maybe that's the mother.
I'm assuming so, yes.
Lualuo, I'm butchering this name. Salofa Fatu Sr., their father must be the Fatu. So their mother's Anoa'i, who was, it looks like, their mother is Afa and Sika's sister.
Okay, so he's like directly related. They were like Rikishi's uncle.
It makes Rikishi, Umaga, and Tonga Kid, even though he was Samoan, Jacob Fatu's father. First cousins with Yokozuna, Roman Reigns, with another wrestler named Black Pearl that I don't recognize. And oh shit, if you look at this tree, there's even more of them.
Family trees are so confusing.
Carrie Albright.
I'm not gonna lie, this family tree hurts my brain, and I highly doubt I'm the first person to say this.
They could easily have 2 or 3 more generations of this because some of them have 6, 7 kids already.
Again, you can't tell the history of WWE without the Anoa'i family. So it's very sad what happened, and I do expect Roman, if and when he returns, to talk about how his father would be ashamed of Solo for betraying the family the way he has. I think you're going to see Paul Heyman talk about his father in high regards. I think that's going to become an interesting element in the story as we build towards what I'm predicting is going to be a Bloodline Civil War 2 and War Games in the fall.
They've done a good job of physically telling the state of the Bloodline through how Paul Heyman looked. When the Bloodline was doing well, Paul Heyman was put together, he was shaved, his eyes weren't redder than the devil's dick, but you saw him last night and he looked like shit.
He looked terrible. Looked like he aged 40 years in 4 months.
Like Solo's aged him.
I think Paul not turning on Roman is the right call, because now when Roman does return, he'll cut that promo, and then you can have Paul be like, well, now we need to make amends with everybody. We need to go back to Jimmy and apologize to him. We need to go back to Jay and apologize to him. Probably even Sami Zayn, and then maybe one other person I'm forgetting.
So Roman comes back, reunites the Bloodline against
Solo, and then they do War Games. I think you'll probably see Roman return at SummerSlam. My prediction is he's going to spear both Roman and Cody. He's going to drag Cody's dead body over Solo. And then he's going to say, if anybody's taking the belt from Cody, it's me. But first, I'm dealing with you, Solo.
We got a little bit off topic there, but let's go back to what we were talking about.
The Wild Samoans is one of the most important tag teams in wrestling history. Not just because of the family tree and how that's influenced the family, but because of how great of a tag team they were. Whether they were working with Lou Albano or Paul Heyman.
The other piece to that puzzle is when they were coming up and when they were in the Federation. And that was Vince's golden time. Let's go back a second. We said they were there 1982 to 1985. The first WrestleMania is 1984. This is right when Vince is starting to expand the global empire. So they got some really good exposure. And they got to be a really good heel foreign tag team at the perfect time for them.
And they would just create a bunch of crazy Samoans. That was their whole gimmick. Just coming in, unintelligible words, do your thing. So they were very interesting, to say the least. But yeah, at the end of the day, they were a very well done tag team, one of the most important tag teams. And they were part of the first ever WrestleMania.
For a while after them, I think it was hard to be a Samoan in wrestling. Like, Yokozuna, they gave him a Japanese gimmick. Rikishi, they kind of gave him a Japanese gimmick because Rikishi translates to... Here, let's see what it translates to.
Well, it's also for the time. Think about it. Right? Everybody had some sort of weird gimmick at that point. Especially in Yokozuna's case.
Like, even when you think about the Usos when they first started, they were like... You knew they were...
Samoans.
You knew they were Samoans. Okay, Rikishi's general Japanese term for a sumo wrestler, right? So they gave him a Japanese name for a Samoan wrestler. Then they brought in his kids and they gave him bright colors and it was like child friendly and it wasn't scary and it wasn't anything exciting.
It was pretty mid.
I mean, we're glossing over Rosie, who was a superhero.
It's a stupid gimmick.
Umaga was the only one that really had a realistic look and feel to him, and still they booked him like an unintelligible Samoan.
You know, I thought that John Cena and Umaga Last Man Standing match was great, though. One of the last times someone was allowed to bleed and bleed hard.
It took them a long time to really get to this point with Samoan wrestlers. Like, The Rock is his own thing.
Sorry. Yeah, listen, The Rock ended up being the biggest draw since Hogan, and arguably the biggest draw in wrestling history. So, you know, I wouldn't really count Rock. I'd say he's more so an exception than the norm.
Well, think about it. They brought him in as Rocky Maivia, and it didn't get over, and they dropped the Rocky Maivia, and they just made him The Rock, but they put him with the Nation of Domination. So right there, he blended into two categories, and I think with a lot of things, people want to see somebody in one category. Especially wrestling, your character is 3-dimensional to a degree, and then 2-dimensional to a degree, right?
I also think it's this in the case of Rock, but also as wrestlers in general. What comes more naturally to you, heel or babyface? Some people have the ability to do both, and do both very well. But for others, one comes more naturally than the other. Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, whatever you want to call him, is much more of a natural babyface. Roman Reigns is a much more of a natural heel. So it's harder to get Bryan over as a heel when he's naturally a good guy, and it's hard to get Roman over as a babyface, as we all seen and saw, when he's so good at being a heel, because that's what just makes him feel more authentic.
So The Rock's character was that he was charismatic. He was interesting to listen to. He said some wild shit. But his Samoanness wasn't at the forefront.
No.
You never really heard him talk too much about his dad, his mother's side of the family. It was about what he was doing in the here and now. Right? Whereas some wrestlers, it's the Samoan bloodline, it's the Samoan dynasty, we're the SWAT team Samoans, right? Like, the fact that they put the Samoanness in their characters, or had their Samoanness forced into their characters, is really what made you think about them as Samoans. And, like, it's interesting that you can either book a Samoan as a Samoan or as part of something.
Well, now that answer with the bloodline is somewhere in the middle.
Like, okay, when Roman was in the Shield, were they always talking about how Samoan he was, who his dad was? That came later, right?
No, they were talking about how Roman goes, ooh-ah,
Ooh-ah!
and spears people. But again, it's a testament to the greatness of the Samoan, or the Wild Samoans, that they've had such an incredible family with such a long lineage. And in all honesty, a very successful family.
So that's our take on Samoans. My favorite Samoan man.
I know you're not Googling what I think you're Googling right now.
My favorite tag team are the Funky Samoans.
For context, we have two computers in front of us, and he controls both, and he is Googling some dumb stuff right now.
That came up way too quickly. And that's where we'll leave you. This podcast comes out every Sunday. Join us. We'll talk about wrestling. We'll make some dumb jokes, and we'll go from there.
That came up way too fast.